Hello, everyone. My name is Gilda Ross. I coordinate the GPS Parent Series. I'm delighted you could be here. I had the honor, the privilege of listening to Hunter Clarke-Fields this afternoon, and I'm so glad you could be here because there are some wonderful takeaways that you can put to use immediately to benefit your family. Our ask of everyone who's listening is to please share this resource. GPS is free. Thanks. Thinking, I love the way you really had us spend time in the self-awareness and taking a look at ourselves, pausing and taking a look at ourselves and how are we doing what we need to do to take care of ourselves so we can be there for others. Are we getting our sleep? Are we exercise? Are we showing them that adulthood is a pleasurable experience? We're recharging ourselves with our time with our friends and our family.
Yeah.
And then because the goal is to lower our baseline, and that takes practice, but we're also modeling for them these healthy habits. Um, our goal, as you said, we're calming our stress response. We're going to practice the pause. The pause, this is my mantra. It's going to be the word pause. It's going to be breath. It's going to be pause. And in that pause, I can come back into that place that my child deserves, and I deserve to be there for them. And we're going to solve problems based on need because as I increase my power, I decrease my influence. It's an inverse relationship. And as I turn to maybe that mentor role a little bit as they become older, I'm teaching them about decision making. You spent some very nice time reminding us we all need the reminders about mindfulness. Really, the way you described it was really so simple. A few breaths, 3, 5, 10, whatever it takes. Last Tuesday, we hosted Bill Cartwright of the Chicago Bulls. One of the questions that came to him was when his coach handed them all, it's kind of well known, handed them a book on mindfulness. And he is a 7'1" basketball player, was talking about how he, to this day, how that mindfulness practice has really made a difference in his life.
Hmm.
So I thought it's all of us. So here's my question with all of that. Um, so you have, well, I've got a couple of questions, but my first question, and I'll go to Mary. My first question is, what's the number one question that you get when people come to you about you've explained this to them, and now what's the question that you often get from parents?
Well, I mean, I get this question of, but how do I do it in
Uh-huh. Right.
XYZ situation, right? Because it seems so hard to like sort of translate it to the situation. And it's what it always turns back into is, okay, well, what is happening for you in that moment, right?
Mhm.
And and the processing of those feelings that feel impossible to process, it's all just about what is feeling it in the moment, meaning, you know, maybe it's a tightness in your throat or it's a pulsing or it's a physical thing you're feeling. When we're practicing to just calm in the moment, we're really returning to our senses and getting into a moment that feels like where we have this feeling of like, I've got to get out of here. And when we stop and we just stop with it and we look at it, it's that I've got to get out of here feeling just goes away often completely. Um,
Mhm.
so yeah, it's usually about, well, how do I do it in this
Yeah.
situation and in this situation and this situation?
Yeah.
But it is always about coming back to being present.
And the way that you're reminding me, the way that you talked about the breath, it's not complicated. If you put in that thought in your head, that mantra, slow exhale, slow exhale.
And it's not complicated, but it takes practice because as we flip our lids,
Mhm.
just because you've been to this training, just because you've read a book, like that's what I had to learn, right? Like just because I've read a book, just because I've listened to a person, doesn't mean I'm gonna remember. I'm not different from everybody else. And I'm not going to remember when I flip my lid. It has to be something that you practice, right? It has to be something that I practice this pause in the good moments. So you can practice the pause, like if when your kid comes to you, you just pause, you take a breath, an intentional breath, right? You can practice it when you get in the car, you pause and you take a few deep breaths, right? You practice it in moments. So then it's like a muscle. You can't just expect your kid to go into the Little League World Series if they've never practiced baseball, right? Like they have to practice so they get that muscle memory. It's the same with us with
Yeah, yeah,
pausing.
yeah, that's great. Mary, I know you have a question. Um, and while Mary's coming online, oh, go ahead, Mary. There you are.
Okay, so first I want to thank you very much for this. I learned some things. I really love the question, how can we get everyone's needs met? I think that's
Yes.
an amazing question no matter how old your children are. And I also really like the little 1, 2, 3. I think that was a very good exercise to just sort of
Mm.
figure out where you are. I think that my
Mary,
question,
Mary, before you go there, repeat the 1, 2, 3.
Oh, it's the
where
self
yeah, are
assessment.
we getting enough exercise? Are we getting enough sleep? And are we seeing friends and family? And then we had to say, never occasionally, making an effort, or consistently.
Oh, beautiful.
And
Self-awareness.
I liked it. It was very, very quick, and very easy. But I feel like it does give you just even a moment to think about that.
Mhm, mhm.
Um, I think my question is, how do we and maybe this is a little bit off topic a little bit, but how do you forgive yourself after you did screw up? So I
Oh,
feel like sometimes, you don't handle a situation as a parent very well, and that actually increases your stress even further,
Hmm.
because now you're filled with that your own sense of not feeling like you did a good job, and you don't. Sometimes I'm never sure if I should explain or apologize or whatever, and I that's why I really was captivated with that how do we get all of our needs met question. I think that's a great place, but I think that would be helpful to hear too. How do we move on from a screw up as a
mhm,
parent?
mhm.
Well, it's important to understand that we definitely will mess up. That's the definition of being human. We absolutely will. I do plenty of times. Um, of course, we can repair with our kids. If we lose it at our kids, we can say, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have yelled. I wish I didn't. If I could do it over again, I would say this, or do you want a hug, or whatever it is, right? We want to repair, right? Rupture and repair. And actually, like when we repair with our kids, it can bring you closer than if you had never had any kind of conflict or difficulty before at all. So it's important to understand that it's not like your kids need you to be some perfect angel in the sky. Like it's important for your kids to see that, yeah, you lose it sometimes. Yeah, you mess up. You have all the messy emotions that they have, but you know how to process them. And part of the processing them is to forgive yourself. And
Mhm.
I say to myself sometimes, like, you know, because I'm human, I make mistakes, I mess up, and I've like written a book and I do a teacher training now. So, oh my gosh, right? Like, so, so I say to myself, I put my hand on my heart and I say to myself, permission to be human. I have permission to be human too.
Mhm.
And then I'll repair whatever maybe damage my humanness has made. Um, but I don't. It's important for us to not put ourselves on a pedestal and to practice giving ourselves a soft landing. I mean, that's the practice of self-compassion. It can feel weird and strange if we're not used to it, if we're used to really being very judgmental on ourselves, but it's actually very, very practical to be
Mhm.
kinder to yourself when you mess up, because then you're much like when I was harsh on myself, when I told myself I was a terrible parent, like I would just be incapacitated and terrible, like for hours. I couldn't do anything. But when I'm say, oh my God, that was a hard moment. Oh God, that stank. Oh, permission to be human.
Mhm.
I forgive myself. I'm gonna repair. Then I'm able to kind of get up and be more present and join, with my family again.
Mhm.
Thank
Yeah,
you. That's another really memorable line there. I appreciate
Yeah.
yeah.
that.
Yeah.
You're reminding me about someone who recently said, take the do-over.
Yeah.
And then, of course, you're modeling that imperfection that all humans have. So here's another question that came in this afternoon. I have a partner who's just doing all the things that you talked about,
Mm.
reacting, the yelling. How do I handle that?
Yeah, that's incredibly hard. Um, it may be helpful to talk to your partner to say, I feel really uncomfortable.
Mhm.
Tell them about how that makes you feel and how it affects you. I can see our kid is scared. It's creating more disconnection. What's going on for you? Can I understand? Is this how you were raised, right? Like, can you get curious instead of judgmental? And listen. And sometimes people are receptive to that, and sometimes people aren't. I always tell people that it never hurts to focus on yourself and your own parenting relationship with your child, and improve that relationship with your child. And then as you start to learn more skillful means and communication and all of those things, and then your partner starts to see, oh, that works pretty well.
Mhm.
What's she doing? Right? Or what's he doing?
Mhm.
Then maybe those conversations can happen. But I guess if you're going to have those conversations, try to come from a place of compassion and curiosity rather than judgment and being accusatory.
Well, you just spent a lot of time talking about how important it is, to do that modeling. And if we're doing that for our kids, we need to be doing it for our partners as well,
Hmm.
because really, for all of the people in our lives, it really comes down to the relationship. The relationship. If you don't have that relationship with your child, then how are we going to impact them in any way? Am I right about that?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And hopefully these are relationships that last a lifetime, right? So if we can make them good, they'll be there for a lifetime.
It was wonderful spending the day with you. I've
Yeah.
enjoyed your book. Others will as well. I hope you'll circle your calendar for upcoming events. Share this resource. We'll be sharing the questions afterwards on our YouTube channel. And this is where we go hug the kids. So now we're going to go hug the kids.
I'm gonna go hug.
Talked about, and I'm going to tell you the things that spoke to me. Just amazing reminders about, you know, and the way that you phrased it made me think about things in a different way. That our nervous system sees them as a threat. And so, and I love so much of what you talked about sort of understanding that conflict is normal. These feelings are normal. Potentially, this yelling is normal, that it's not our fault, but how we respond in that moment is something that we can be responsible for. Of course, we can't expect them to calm down if we don't calm down. I love when you talked about understanding that we're going to look at this in two ways, that we're going to get that baseline lower so that when they walk in the door and we found, whatever it was, the messy room that they promised they would clean, that we're going to be in a lower place to begin with. And we're going to do that because we're going to take better care of ourselves with our sleep, with our exercise, with our showing them that being an adult can be fun. Otherwise, why would anybody want to become an adult? I love your rephrasing about modeling. And when you talk about why the exhale, why that feels good, that how that relaxation really doesn't take that long, does it? And you're
Mm-mm.
there. Be aware of your triggers, naming your emotion. I love that. Yes, I am frustrated, especially like the mantras that you shared with us. This is not an emergency. I'm helping my child. And then uh about, how how we can come from this from a win-win, how everybody can get their needs met, and asking that question. But again, the modeling, if we want them to be calm, if we want them to be problem solvers, if we want them to yell less, we've got to model this for them. How did I do?
Great. Good
Oh,
job,
good.
Hilda.
Okay.
That's a
Okay. Well,
lovely
the notes
summary.
help. So I'm going to start off with a question. So what do you think? Is there anything particular that parents of teens need to know as opposed to parents of younger children need to know?
Well, I think it's important, when the that parents of teens need to know is that our kids really need kids need time with us and they need understanding, right? They need that mutual respect flowing. I'm guilty of this too. I think, oh, she's on her screen again. She must be whatever. She could be, helping a friend with a problem through a text, right? It doesn't necessarily mean she's turning her brain into mush with TikTok, although that might be true. It could be she's doing some other important things too. So it's important to kind of to listen and to talk things through, and also to, I don't know, I think the most important thing with teens is like that when they're little, they're just all in your face, that you're like, oh God, give me a break. But when they're teens, you need to date them a little bit more. You need to do things with them. You need to play ping pong. You need to take them to the movies or do some different things together, because they're not, you get a little bit more of the closed bedroom, a lot more of the closed bedroom door than you do when they're little. So
Right.
kind of like the way we are taught to sort of consciously date our partners and things like that, that we want to be conscious that this is a relationship that we're nurturing and taking care of with our teenagers, a relationship for life.
Yeah, that's great. Ryan, I know you have a question. You're up.
I do. Yeah. First of all, thank you so much, Hunter. Just a powerful message. I think a couple things spoke to me. Mainly that power over influence diagram that you showed was really interesting. I think, and kind of in concert with your message about oftentimes as parents we try to win versus trying to collaborate, and that was a really important message that you shared, because it's very easy to fall into that trap of winning and losing versus we're all on the same team here and trying to make our, like you say, trying to raise our children as good humans. I'm curious, Gilda asked about that differentiation between, young children and high school age children or adolescents, but in education, we talk about differentiation a lot, right? And we have a classroom full of students, and we're trying to support students where they're at. I'm curious your perspective on, even in our own houses where we have two or three children, how do you differentiate that support among them so that it doesn't create resentfulness among the other children? If you're giving more support, or a child needs more support, how do you, what perspective do you have on that, where you have multiple children and you're trying to differentiate that support?
I think it's almost impossible to make it absolutely even and fair. It is impossible. In fact, there's the Buddhist tradition that I practice in. They say, may you be free from the inequality complex, the or inferiority complex, the superiority complex, and the equality complex, right? Because we can't ever get it all perfectly equal. In fact, I have a daughter, one has a chronic pain condition, and so it's the other daughter, she has felt resentment because she's had to do more around the house, because her sister has this pain condition, we've all had to learn to live with. And so it hasn't been equal. And I think that, yeah, obviously we can do our best to balance responsibilities and chores and our allotment of energy and time and driving all over the place. But also I think that one of the things I've had to do for my younger daughter, who has felt some resentment, has been I just listen and say, yeah, it's hard. It sucks that you feel frustrated, right? That you've had to do more around the house and it feels unfair to you, right? Like just listening and understanding, and not, we don't necessarily have to fix and solve every problem, but right away, right? We can keep it in mind, but we can also keep in mind that listening is a huge step in itself when we have a problem. When somebody else has a problem, is just listening and seeing and hearing them and acknowledging their difficulty.
Well, what
Yeah, I think
suggestions?
oh,
Go ahead, Brian, please.
I was going to say, I think the other message that really resonated is when you're talking about the calming effect, right? And it's anxiety and stress can be contagious, and so can calming. Calming can be contagious as well. And to me, that's the best message, that whether it's parents, educators, or whoever, the best message we can take is the more calm we remain, that can be contagious as well.
Yeah, we feel each other's feelings. Absolutely. You know, they know what's going on with us, so we can't just pretend. That's why we want to recognize our feelings and often out loud, because we can't just pretend that everything's cool and our kids will see right through it, right? They have amazing BS meters. So we can't just pretend everything's cool when it's not. So we might as well just name it and recognize it and model what's going on for us. And then, yeah, just that it is contagious. You know, like my oldest daughter was really upset at us one time for something to do with swim team, and she was mad at me and my husband, and she was talking, she was upset. And at first I was so uncomfortable with this that like we're sitting and I grabbed a broom and started to sweep the the entryway, and I realized what I'm doing. Like, oh, I'm like trying to like, and then so then I just sat down. I practiced to breathe those longer exhales. I didn't have an answer. I didn't know what to do. I just sat there and I listened to her and I felt what I was feeling. And it was funny. Nothing changed too much except like in about less than a minute, she ended up of me sitting down and just breathing and being there. She sat down next to me and slumped her body against me, and she was still upset. I hadn't fixed or solved any problem, but it was just the fact of listening and breathing and pausing and being there that can be, you know, our presence is really a huge gift.
You're reminding me about Becky Kennedy when she came, she talked about sit with them on the bench in that moment, and then potentially they'll get up off the bench quicker than you will. So, you know, you talked about those big emotions. They happen in the young years and then they come back again in the teen years. So I've got my teenage daughter and there's an explosion going on and I'm going there. Walk me through what I'm going to do in this moment. So doesn't become a scene that I'm going to regret later.
Well, if you're not getting triggered by this, if you can accept her feelings and like, wow, okay, she's having some big feelings, but it's not a, you know, ultimately that might not be a problem for you. So if you're not getting triggered, you can just sit there and be like, wow, you know, you are really upset. I'm here for you, right? Or whatever. You don't even have to say it. You just show it with your body language. That's great. If they're really upset at you, you can also do the same thing, right? Like I did. You can sit, recognize your feelings. Okay, I'm feeling uncomfortable. Feel it in your body, and you know, do some longer exhales and be there. Um, we can recognize their feelings, right? This is called reflective listening. Oh my God, you are so mad right now. Oh, you know, oh, yeah, like I see you, I hear you. Let them know what you see and hear. Is this right? You hate this situation because of XYZ, right? You can reflect back. That takes the temperature down. This is all name it to tame it. And then you just practice listening. Listening is like the best skill we can have as a parent of a teenager. And listening without taking it personally, listening and practicing to calm yourself. You know, breathing in, I'm like a calm, solid mountain. Breathing in, I'm like a mountain. Breathing out, I feel solid, right? Just being that place where their wave can crash against us, and we can hold and accept what's happening for them, and we can accept them even when if they have these big feelings.
And I'm thinking about what you just said a minute ago about practice this. So we're prepared when that moment comes along. And I really love that distinction that you just made that, you know, is this a trigger or can I just listen, respond without judgment in this moment, having that again, self-awareness. Well, we have learned a lot and I can't wait to come back in a few minutes. Well, actually 7 o'clock. And so everyone who's listening, tell a family member. We'll be back tonight at 7 p.m. for more questions for this conversation. And maybe you want to hear it again. I do. I'm gonna take it all in so that I can be there in that moment for my child. This has been wonderful. I really appreciate it. And Brian?
Absolutely. Thank you, Gilda. Thank you, Brian. Thank you, everyone. I'll see you. I'm sorry if we didn't get to all the questions. Maybe we'll get them at 7 o'clock. But yeah, thank you so much, and happy to be here.
Come on back, everyone. Thank you so much. See you next time. Take care. Bye-bye.